after 11:30 a.m. So you know you're in the right time at the right place with the right people. I don't know. It looks like my buddy over there has just pulled up to the bar. Don't know where he is, but he looks comfortable. Order one for me, bro.
I got you, man. What's good, bro?
Just trying to make it through this weekend. Had a great night of fights on PBC on Fox. I know we're gonna get into that. Um, Look, WrestleMania kicks off this weekend, so we're not gonna hold y'all up. We're gonna jump into the intro. We'll be right back. It can stay in the 30s. I'm good with it. 20s, 30s. I'm good with it.
I mean, when you got that natural installation, bro, it's cool. I get it. But for
No,
me,
I just real men come from the north, so we can deal.
oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. That sums it all up. Let's
We
get to it.
can deal with the cold.
I'm saying these names not because they're essentially the best fighters out there, which we can make a case for Shakur Stevenson definitely. They just look that much better than whoever they fight.
I think he might want to keep this thing on the feet and stay any way possible. Stay away from that guillotine choke. he was squeezing Buddy's face in the last fight and put him out.
Come on, dog. Let's fight.
Welcome to the Fighter Share Report. I'm sorry. I still love to hear her say, "Come on, dog, let's fight." What's going on? Hey, did you catch that card last night?
Man, you know I did, brother. You know I did. Even wherever I'm at, moving however I move, I have to make sure I tune in and catch the fights. I caught it.
So, all right, we already know what happened in the main event. We'll jump into that last. But did you see? Oh, what is Buddy's name? The heavyweight we want to
Michael
watch.
Coffey
Yes.
against the Monty Rock.
Yes.
And what did I say about that fight? I said I like the guy. Yeah, he's a little older. He's a former, armed services, but I like him. He's learning how to box, and he just has the natural athletic ability to go along with it. Got extremely quick hands to be a big dude like that, man, and just really seems to understand where he wants to be, his positioning, and he's a tough guy, which we know that already from being in the Marines. So he's or in armed services.
No,
so
Marine.
He's used to standing in the proverbial fire. So he ain't too listen. He's willing to kind of stand in front of you and pick his spots and see where he can get. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Unfortunately for Damani Rock, this isn't a good sign for him. I mean, looking like he was not in any he was in a shape, not fighting shape, and it just I don't know if that did anything for his stock last night. Damani Rock was a highly touted prospect coming out, a kid that coming up in that DC area. People thought that he really had this skill set. And all of a sudden, it just kind of founders, and I don't know where he goes from here.
I don't either, but I know he went back to the showers after getting knocked out. I know that. It was, and got caught with that. Those two looked like short uppercuts from an angle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
oh, it was a nasty angle. And that's all I can say. He went down.
Yeah, he did.
So yeah. And then we saw Rancis Bartholomew go on to a victory where I thought he was going to stop Buddy, but he didn't.
Yeah, the Bartholomew brothers have a long pedigree and history of their, prowess as Cuban amateurs or what have you. They came on with, with a little bit of fanfare, but it kind of fizzled out. They've not quite lived with expectations. Their fighting style, albeit kind of like most Cubans, tends to be just a very technical style, maybe sometimes a little bit boring. So we don't really see those guys give any stoppages. So, any opportunity that you see them in a fight and they actually have their foot on the gas and they're trying to get guys out of there, I mean, that's a good day for you.
Yeah, it was a good fight. I mean, you could tell he was not in any jeopardy of losing the fight. He just couldn't get him out of there. And they were talking about the fact that he was scheduled for a vacant world title fight back in April or May and that has still been postponed. So it's a good thing he was able to keep in position by winning last night. It was a good card. I started watching it about 7. It was a very good card all the way through. But you know what? People are here to hear about Caleb Sweet Hands Plant against Caleb Truax. And if you looked at the fight going in, Caleb Truax has been in some wars. He's lost a lot of wars, lost a lot of them. Back in 2017, he was able to win a title in England. Who was the guy who was fighting? He was fighting him in his hometown. DeGale. And James DeGale. And he was able to outlast or even stop DeGale and win that. No, it was a decision. It was a decision.
Yeah, he didn't stop him. Mm-hmm.
And he won that title and then didn't hold on to it. And he came in the last night and they were building it up. But it's what we thought. Caleb Plant is just in a different league. He couldn't stop him, but he did all but stop him.
Yeah, I mean, it was a sharp performance, but, we expect to see Caleb Plant step on the gas. But if what he said is true after the fight and there's truly an injury with that hand, I'm hoping it's not the same hand he broke a year or so back, which caused a long hiatus for him. But, yeah, he's a pure boxer in every sense of the word. His skill set looked pretty good last night. Feet, head movement. He got caught with a few shots, but I think that's because we know that Caleb Truax is not much of a puncher. So Caleb was actually trying to take some chances there and try to get him out of there. So we don't know how much that hand injury played a factor in it, but, all things considered, good performance.
Yeah. I give him an A on that one, especially if he hurt his hand, because he made sure he was never in any jeopardy. All right, so WWE WrestleMania season kicks off tonight. This is usually the start of where everybody gears up for WrestleMania, because you're looking at the Royal Rumble. And when the Royal Rumble comes into play, the winner of the Royal Rumble goes to WrestleMania. Now, there have been some leaks, as usual, but probably more leaks than any years I've seen past about people returning and people getting cut from the roster around this time, which doesn't usually happen. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the Royal Rumble, it's a 30-man over the top rope battle royal, but people enter like every 3 minutes, I think it is. So you start off with the first 2, and then when the buzzer rings, somebody else comes down the aisle, and it's usually pretty interesting because they'll bring people back that the audience doesn't expect. Like last year, Edge came back, but this year they're talking about John Cena's return. They're talking about Brock Lesnar coming back to the WWE, which his contract just expired, so it's going to be interesting to see about that. There's even rumors that Hulk Hogan's going to show up, and I'm like, I hope not. I really hope not. But it's going to be interesting because the winner of the Royal Rumble goes on to face the WWE champion or the champion of their choosing at WrestleMania, which will be in 2 months. So it's always an interesting situation when you look at the Royal Rumble. Plus, your man, Goldberg, is fighting for the title tonight. He's like 87 years old, and he'll be fighting Drew McIntyre, who just got over COVID. So this has all the semblances are wrong. But it fits it. It's happening in Florida.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, WWE and WrestleMania and all the other subsidiaries of this business, they have to make money. I'm not mad at what they're doing. I am mad at Goldberg still wrestling, though. What's up with that?
Well, sometimes we just can't let it go. And they're paying him a bucket of money to come back just because they're worried about the ratings dropping. Because AEW has made such an inroad this past year and a half, 2 years. So they're really worried about the ratings, how they've dropped off on Raw. So they figure, hey, Goldberg's going to get a big pop. Let's bring him back at WrestleMania, or at the Royal Rumble, just to see if it helps stabilize or increase the ratings at all in this pay-per-view.
And I want to say something too. I'm not as astute as you are when it comes to all the interworkings of the WWE and the wrestling. But I will say this: I've always been a fan of Royal Rumble. Even before they put the steel cage around them, they just have a million people in the ring. I thought that was a dope experience, and it was just essentially the last man standing. So I might tune into that one, bro. That sounds pretty interesting.
Well, you'll be happy to know there's no cage around this one. It's back to where they can dump people out on the floor. And I love the big entrances and the fans go crazy and the person's in there for like 18 seconds. So last year it was incredible because Brock Lesnar was number 1 and he eliminated the first 15 entrants. It was crazy. I had never seen anything like that before. And you look at it and you're like, wow. I mean, of all the Royal Rumble matches I had seen, and I had started becoming tired of them, but that kind of sparked my interest to see one person eliminate the next 15 people. It was kind of crazy. But look, the other rumor is Roman Reigns is going to drop the Universal title, the WWE SmackDown title to Kevin Owens because they just think Kevin Owens deserves a push, and Roman Reigns has so much heat behind him that he can run it without the title. So we'll see, because they'll have a rematch again at WrestleMania, almost guaranteed. But we'll see if that rumor is true that Kevin Owens, who's got the dad bod of the year, can defeat Roman Reigns in this one. So moving on to punch counter punch. Caleb has planted himself as the only legit matchup for Canelo at 168. What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think stylistic, we all like the different elements of the fight game that Caleb Plant brings against someone like Canelo. But truth be told, I think there's some other better matchups at 168 for Caleb Plant. Before you get to Canelo Alvarez, we talked about that, before, whether it be David Benavidez, whether it be Andre Dirrell, whether it be whoever. Jamal Charlo is going to come up eventually. And with him, probably Demetrius Andrade, and with him, probably Danny Jacobs. Well, I think Danny Jacobs is already at 168. You haven't heard any mention of him. That's probably because he's working with the zone. But yeah, there's a lot of great matchups out there for Caleb Plant. It's not just Canelo Alvarez. If there was one takeaway from last night's fight, I don't know how significant the hand injury was when it initially took place, but I know that Caleb Truax was never really hurt. I mean, he did get buzzed, but I don't think he was ever in any danger of being knocked out. And Caleb Truax, I don't know, but I don't think he's ever been stopped. And if he has, maybe only been once. So he has a granite chin and going with that big blockhead he got. So I'm not surprised that Caleb Plant necessarily couldn't stop him. But I think you want to see that because it's going to take something special like that to beat the Canelo Alvarez. I don't see anybody beating Canelo in a boxing match where he's not hurt or knocked down. I just think Canelo's skills are just, in a way, kind of just a little bit better than everybody else's. And as the fight goes on, especially if Canelo's kind of, figured that whole little fatiguing thing out, what it looks like he does, what it looks like he has. If he's figured out how not to gas in those middle to late rounds, I just think his skill set is just a little bit better than everybody else's. So I don't know if anybody's a great matchup for Canelo.
That's an interesting thought. I do believe Caleb Plant is pretty much when fully healthy, is the best matchup for Canelo 168 because I don't think he would have to try to knock him out to beat him. I think because of his skill set, the angles he throws punches from. Now, again, he's never faced anybody like Canelo before because Canelo is also an excellent defensive fighter who's been able to merge his offense and defense together like a Floyd Mayweather. But I do believe at 168, Caleb Plant offers the biggest challenge to Canelo right now. You got Billy Joe Saunders, who has a title. Nobody's really mentioning him. And we don't know if he's going to fight Demetrius Andrade or not. And then, I just believe Caleb Plant healthy has a skill set that matches up well with his movement and his gas tank and the angles he throws punches from. I don't see him stopping Canelo ever, or maybe even putting him down ever. But I do think he can go point for point with him through the match, and gain maybe that 1 or 2 round advantage on him.
I mean, you give a lot of praise to Caleb Plant when you talk about his boxing ability. Let's just not forget who Canelo Alvarez is. Since being beat by Floyd Mayweather, he's like a completely different fighter, both offensively and defensively.
Yeah.
He is hands down the best fighter on the planet right now, pound for pound, at least as far as we're concerned. I think we both have him at number 1. I like Caleb Plant, but I don't want to make it seem like that he's shown us something that we can legitimately say skill-wise. He's on par with Canelo. Now, skill-wise, he's a lot better than a lot of other 168 guys out there as far as what he does as a complete fighter. But we know he would also have tests in his armor against somebody like Benavides, who's a stalking big puncher. Somebody like Charlo, who's just as athletic, but has a piston-like jab. I just think that,
now,
we like Caleb Plant, but we got to be careful because Canelo's kind of a different guy.
Keep what I said in context, though. I said matchup. I didn't say I thought he would win. I said he would be the best matchup at 168 of the current people at 168. So I'm not putting money on him. I just think if Canelo's going to fight anybody at 168, I think Plant healthy offers the stiffest challenge just based on his acumen and movement.
They got him slated to fight Billy Joe Saunders in May. That's Canelo, by the way.
I thought he had a fight coming up in March. Go ahead.
No, Canelo has a fight with Ildrim in a couple weeks, and he's scheduled to have. They're looking at Billy Joe Saunders for Cinco de Mayo. Anyway, so my 2-minute rant is going to be a little quick. That's why I stalled those first 15 seconds. I'm a vet. I know how to do this thing, right?
Whatever.
But no, I was going to get on here and talk about John Chaney because I think that just means a lot to the culture, what he represented. He didn't win a whole lot of timber, but he did enough. He was completely honest and just candid and gave some hellified sound bites. I'm
going to kill you, Calipari.
Yeah, when he wanted to beat up John Calipari, that was dope. But I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about something a little more interesting and something a little bit closer to home. Hey, man, the Rams just traded Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford. Now, I don't understand nothing. None of this makes sense to me. Jared Goff was just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and you're bringing in Matthew Stafford. Jared Goff just got you a couple of playoff wins with a broken thumb. And you bringing in Matthew Stafford, you've just given up your 2 first-round picks back-to-back to the Jacksonville Jaguars to get Jalen Ramsey. So not only does Jacksonville get your first-round pick in this coming draft, guess what? Now you give up your 2 next first-round picks in 2022 and 2023 to the Detroit Lions. I mean, that's saying a lot about Sean McVay and the owner of the Rams brass. They really feel like their defense is going to be intact for the next 2 or 3 years, and that Matthew Stafford is the answer. They got to take them over the hump. They got to beat Aaron Rodgers. They got to beat Sean Payton, who will be the quarterback with the Saints. They got to beat Kyler Murray. I'm not sure if I'm betting all that Matthew Stafford. I like Matthew Stafford. He's a good player. But what has he really ever accomplished in Detroit? His best years was with Jim Caldwell, and that was only 4. There were 4 years before that, and then a couple this year. I just don't really see what the big fuss is about. But what it goes to show is that the league, just like everybody else, has grown fastly impatient.
Bro, I wish you had told me that off the air because I didn't realize that happened. And that's ignorant. You would trade. I'm sorry. I'm messing up. I'm using my 2 minutes, and I'm just floored by what you said. Good morning, Audrey. Listen. I was actually going to talk about John Chaney, so I'm glad you moved off of that. Listen, John Chaney was integral in the Atlantic 10 Conference. John Chaney did for Temple what John Thompson did for Georgetown. John Chaney was able to recruit kids that Temple never thought they wanted or needed. John Chaney was able to really groom a lot of young players, inner city players, taught them the skills of manhood as well as the skills of basketball, the discipline to become a better person in life. John Chaney was old school. He didn't play. He was his way or the highway, even though he was able to adapt and deal with the young folks and their foolishness when he brought them in. But he brought them in with a level of expectation of, you're going to live up to my expectations for you until your expectations for you supersede my expectations for you. I really loved watching his teams. I love seeing him on the sideline because he looked like an owl. Because, you know, that hairline was going, he looked like the mascot, kind of like Denny Crum in Louisville. Yeah. So I'm going to miss John Chaney. I thought he was a great ambassador to the sport, to the game, to the culture, and just to men in general. All right, bro.
Well said, man. Listen, can you remember those days when Georgetown would play Temple back in the old Big East and you'd have John Chaney against John Johnson? Come on, man.
Yeah.
That was old in the mid-'90s, man. You had Toby Smith doing it down in UK in the mid-'90s. That's why I became a UK fan. So, yeah, man, this is a sad day for many in college basketball.
Actually, in the mid-'90s, Tubby Smith was doing it at Georgia. It was around 98 when he went to Kentucky, after Rick Pitino brought him in and left. But yeah, those were some days, man. They were some days. I give him credit. You had Dean Smith at Carolina, Krzyzewski at Duke, and they just went 3 times a year, and sometimes in the tournament. So it was, those are some good days, man. Look, Cicely Tyson passed, and Cicely Tyson was not just an icon, but a pillar in the acting community, in the African-American community. You never looked at her and said, wow, she was the first woman to do this or the first woman to do that. You just said she was the best. So we had Maya Angelou for literary, and we had Cicely Tyson for acting, stage, screen, television. She was the best, period. Shout out to Audrey. Shout out to Anita. Shout out to Miss Darlene. Shout out to Samantha, Kenneth, my Pooh, my wife. All right, bro.
Hey, man, we're going to keep it short today as we get ready to transcend into a week. Monday, we got therapy on the Left Fine show where I get to just be myself. I mean, I'm looking pretty good right now, but, I'll look better on Monday. So make sure y'all tune in. Spread a little love. You're out here, Fight Nation. We'll see y'all. Peace.
Pretty Ricky. Oh, and then it paused. That's not supposed to happen.